Dr. Lisa Carter pressed her face against the observation window and watched the blue gases swirl around the giant planet below. The research station New Horizon had been her home for 3 years now, floating peacefully in orbit around this massive world. She never got tired of the view. "Still watching the storms, Lisa?" asked Dr. Kevin Wells as he walked into the observation deck with his coffee mug. Kevin was the station's chief engineer and Lisa's closest friend among the 847 people who lived and worked here. "They're beautiful," Lisa said. "Each storm is different. Some last for days, others disappear in hours. I've been tracking them for months now." Kevin joined her at the window. "Any luck with the crystal samples from the fourth moon?" Lisa's eyes lit up. "Actually, yes. The crystalline structures are unlike anything we've seen before. They grow, they react to light, and they seem to communicate with each other through electrical pulses. It's like they're alive, but not in any way we understand life." The Kepler 442 system had been a perfect choice for human expansion. The gas giant had 12 moons, 3 of which could support human life with minimal terraforming. The fourth moon contained the strange crystal formations that had attracted scientific attention from across human space. Commander Jake Morrison walked past the observation deck, nodding to the 2 scientists. At 35, Jake was young for a base commander, but he had earned his position through years of service in the Human Defense Forces. His job was to keep the research station safe. Though there hadn't been any real threats in the 3 years since they arrived, Jake's security team consisted of 30 Marines, all volunteers who had requested assignment to frontier research stations. Most of them were more interested in exploration than combat. They spent their time maintaining equipment, helping with research projects, and enjoying the peaceful life far from the busy core worlds the humans had made friends with. The local Zephyrian traders almost immediately. The Zephyrians were gentle beings who looked like large, intelligent sea creatures. They had shells that changed color with their emotions, and they spoke in musical tones that humans found soothing. The Zephyrians had been fascinated by human technology and eager to trade. Captain Helen Brooks commanded the only military ship in the system, the light cruiser Vigilant Guardian. Her crew of 200 spent most of their time on scientific missions, mapping the system and studying the local space phenomena. The ship's weapons were mainly for asteroid clearing and emergency situations. Helen often joked that her ship was more like a flying laboratory than a warship. The Vigilant Guardian carried advanced sensors, research equipment, and comfortable quarters for long-term missions. It was perfect for exploration work, but it wasn't built for serious combat. The research station itself was a marvel of human engineering. New Horizon consisted of 5 rotating sections connected by a central hub. The rotation provided artificial gravity, and the sections could be sealed off from each other in case of emergency. The station had its own power plant, water recycling systems, and enough food storage to last for months. Lisa loved working in the biology section. The laboratories were equipped with the latest equipment, and she had access to samples from all 12 moons in the system. Her specialty was xenobiology, the study of alien life forms. The crystal formations on the 4th moon were the most interesting discovery of her career. "Dr. Carter to the Communications Center," came the announcement over the station's speakers. Lisa sighed and finished her coffee. "Probably another data transfer request from Earth," she said to Kevin. "They want daily reports on everything we find." Lisa made her way through the station's corridors, greeting the people she passed. New Horizon felt like a small town in space. Everyone knew everyone else, and people looked out for each other. There were families here, children who had never seen Earth, and elderly researchers who had spent their lives studying the stars. The communications center was buzzing with activity when Lisa arrived. Lieutenant Dan Cooper, the station's communications officer, looked worried. "What's wrong, Don?" Lisa asked. "We're picking up transmissions from the edge of the system," Don said. "Multiple ships, but they're not responding to our identification requests, and Dr. Carter, they're not human ships." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "How many ships?" "Hard to tell at this distance, but it looks like a lot. More than we've ever seen at once." Before Lisa could respond, the blast doors to the communications center opened and several Zephyrian traders rushed in. Their shells were flashing bright orange, which Lisa knew meant they were frightened. "Friend humans," said the lead Zephyrian in his musical voice. "We bring warning news from Homeworld. Great danger comes to peaceful system." Commander Morrison arrived at the communications center just as the Zephyrians began their story. The creature's shells flickered between orange and deep red as they spoke of a massive fleet that had appeared at their home system without warning. "They called themselves the Krathan Hegemony," the Zephyrian continued. "They demanded surrender submission from all species in home system. When peaceful people refused, they began destruction attacks." Lisa translated for the others, as she had learned to understand the Zephyrian language patterns. "They're saying that this Krathan hegemony destroyed their homeworld. These traitors are refugees." The Zephyrian shell turned black, a color Lisa had never seen before. "Many thousands of peaceful people died. Krathan warriors showed no mercy kindness. They said they need space territory for their expanding people." Commander Morrison's face went pale. "Did they say anything about human space? Are they coming this way?" "The Krathan leaders spoke of Deathworld species," the Zephyrian said. "They said the soft humans had forgotten their warrior nature. They want to use the system as base location for attacks on human territories." The communications center fell silent. Lisa felt her heart pounding. She had heard stories about the old days when humans had fought wars across the galaxy. But that was 50 years ago. The human defense forces still existed, but they mainly did exploration and rescue work now. "How long do we have?" Commander Morrison asked. The Zephyrian shell flickered purple, which meant uncertainty. "Perhaps 3 days, perhaps 4 days. The Krathan fleet is large, powerful. They move slowly but with great force." Lisa looked around the communications center at the faces of her friends and colleagues. These were scientists, engineers, and researchers. They had come to this system to study and learn, not to fight wars, but as she looked at their expressions, she saw something else. These people had families here. They had built a life in this system. And if the Zephyrians were right, a hostile alien fleet was coming to destroy everything they had worked for. Commander Morrison activated the station's emergency communication system. "All personnel, this is Commander Morrison. Report to your emergency stations immediately. We have a potential threat approaching the system. This is not a drill." As the station's crew hurried to their positions, Lisa wondered if their peaceful life in the Kepler 442 system was about to come to an end. She thought about the crystal formations on the fourth moon, the research projects that were just beginning to yield results, and the children who called New Horizon home, whatever was coming. They would face it together. They were humans, after all, and humans had never been good at giving up without a fight. 3 days passed like a slow nightmare. The research station New Horizon had transformed from a peaceful scientific outpost into a fortress preparing for war. Dr. Lisa Carter worked alongside the engineering teams, helping to strengthen the station's shields and weapons systems. Nobody had much experience with combat, but everyone did their best. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the command center, watching the long-range sensors with growing dread. The approaching fleet was massive, far larger than anything he had ever seen. Red dots filled the display screen, each one representing an enemy warship. "Sir, we're getting a clearer picture now," reported Lieutenant Don Cooper. 400 ships, maybe more. They're in formation, moving at steady speed toward our position." Jake felt his stomach drop. 400 ships. The research station had basic defensive weapons, and Captain Helen Brooks' ship, Vigilant Guardian, was well armed for a light cruiser, but they were facing impossible odds. "Any word from the outer colonies?" Jake asked. "Are they sending help?" Don shook his head. "The nearest human defense fleet is 6 days away at best. Even if they left immediately when we sent our first warning, they won't arrive in time." On the bridge of the Vigilant Guardian, Captain Brooks studied the same sensor readings. Her crew of 200 had worked around the clock to prepare their ship for battle. They had loaded every weapon, charged every shield generator, and plotted Escape routes for the civilian population. Captain, called out Navigator Lisa Stone, the enemy fleet is changing course. They're heading directly for us now, Helen nodded grimly. How long until they reach weapons range? 6 hours, maybe 7, Lisa replied. Helen activated the ship's communication system. All crew, this is the captain. We knew this day might come. We trained for it, even if we hoped we'd never see it. Today we stand between our people and an enemy that wants to destroy everything we've built. We may not win, but we'll make sure they remember the price of threatening humans. The crew cheered, but Helen could hear the fear in their voices. They were brave people, but they were also realistic. Everyone knew the odds. Back on the research station, Dr. Lisa Carter helped evacuate the children and elderly to the most protected sections of the station. The Zephyrian refugees had offered to help, despite their own fear. Their shells flickered between colors as they carried supplies and comforted the human children. Friend Lisa, said the lead Zephyrian, we are sorry, regretful. That danger threat follows us to peaceful place. It's not your fault, Lisa replied, touching the creature's shell gently. You tried to warn us. That's what friends do. The Zephyrian shell turned a warm blue color. Humans show great kindness to strangers, refugees. We will remember honor. This always. As the enemy fleet drew closer, its true size became clear. The Krathan ships were massive, angular vessels covered in weapon ports and armor plating. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of deadly insects approaching their prey. The lead ship was larger than the others, clearly the command vessel. War Master Vexler stood on its bridge, studying the human positions with satisfaction. The Krathan were insectoid beings with hard shells and multiple arms. They had spent generations building their fleet while hiding in the outer rim of the galaxy. The soft humans have prepared defenses, reported his second-in-command. 1 warship and a research station with basic weapons. Vexler clicked his mandibles in amusement. Humans. They were once feared across the galaxy, but 50 years of peace have made them weak. They build schools and hospitals now instead of battleships. Today we show the galaxy that the age of human dominance is over. The Krathan had studied human conflicts for decades. They knew that humans preferred negotiation and avoided civilian casualties. This made them predictable, and predictable enemies were easy to defeat. Open communication channel, Vexler ordered. Let me speak to these Deathworlders. On the research station, Commander Morrison received the incoming transmission. The alien face that appeared on the screen was Nightmare Fuel, a creature that looked like a cross between a mantis and a spider, with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp mandibles. I am War Master Vexler of the Krathan Hegemony, the creature said in broken human language. You will surrender immediately or face total destruction. Your species has grown soft and weak. Today you learn the price of forgetting your warrior nature. Jake straightened his shoulders. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Human Research Station New Horizon. These are civilians, scientists, and families. We're not a military target. Vexler's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. All humans are targets. Your species claims vast territories but defends them with tiny forces. Today we take this system as our forward base. From here we will launch attacks on your core worlds. We won't surrender, Jake said firmly. These people are under my protection. Then you will die protecting them, Vexler replied. Attack formation, all ships. Show these soft Deathworlders what real warriors look like. The communication ended, and the Krathan fleet began its final approach. The massive ships spread out in a crescent formation, weapons charging with deadly energy. Captain Brooks moved the Vigilant Guardian between the enemy fleet and the research station. Her ship looked tiny compared to the approaching armada, but she held her position. All weapons charged, Captain, reported Weapons Officer Tom Brady. We're ready to fight. Remember, our job is to buy time, Helen said. Every minute we hold them off gives our people a better chance. The battle began. Without warning, the Krathan ships opened fire simultaneously, sending streams of energy toward the human positions. The Vigilant Guardian's shields flared as they absorbed the impact, but Helen knew they couldn't last long against such overwhelming firepower. "Return fire," Helen ordered. "Target their command ship." The human weapons struck the Crethan vessels, but their armor absorbed most of the damage. The enemy ships continued their advance, firing constantly at the lone human cruiser on the research station. The shields began to fail as Crethan weapons found their target. Emergency alarms blared throughout the station and the lights flickered as power systems overloaded. "Hull breach in Section 4, reported Chief Engineer Kevin Wells. "We're losing atmospheric pressure." Commander Morrison worked frantically at the communication console, trying to send one final message to human space. The transmission array was damaged, but still functional. "This is New Horizon Station," Jake spoke into the transmitter. "We are under attack by the Crethan hegemony. 847 souls aboard. Coordinates attached. Tell our families we remembered who we are." The transmission sent just as the communication array exploded in a shower of sparks. The research station shuddered as more Crethan weapons found their mark. The shields failed completely, and the station's hull began to crack under the bombardment. Dr. Lisa Carter helped seal the emergency doors as sections of the station lost pressure. She could hear the Crethan ships outside, their weapons tearing apart everything the humans had built. "Lisa," called Kevin Wells from across the corridor, "the reactor's going critical. We need to get everyone to the emergency shelters." Lisa ran through the corridors, helping to evacuate the last few people to safety. The emergency shelters were deep in the station's core, protected by the thickest armor. If anyone was going to survive this attack, it would be in those shelters. As she sealed the shelter door behind her, Lisa could hear the station dying around them. The Crethan weapons had found the power core, and New Horizon was breaking apart. Outside, the Vigilant Guardian continued to fight, but Captain Brooks' ship was taking terrible damage. The last thing Lisa heard before the shelter's communication system failed was the sound of the Crethan fleet moving into position around the system. War Master Vexler had won his first victory against the humans, but somewhere in the darkness of space, Lisa's commander's final message was racing toward human space at the speed of light. The distress signal would reach the nearest human defense fleet in 18 hours. And when it did, the galaxy would remember why humans were called Deathworlders. The distress signal from New Horizon Station reached the Centauri Naval Base 18 hours after the attack. Admiral Paul Harrison was reviewing morning reports when his communication officer burst into his office without knocking. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," Lieutenant Carol Davis said, her face pale with shock. "It's from the Kepler 442 system." Paul took the datapad and read the message. His expression grew darker with each word. 847 souls. Under attack. Crethan hegemony. The coordinates were attached, along with sensor readings. That showed the massive enemy fleet. "When did this come in?" Paul asked. 3 minutes ago, sir. The signal was heavily damaged, but we managed to clean it up." "Admiral, that's Commander Morrison's voice on the recording." Paul had known Jake Morrison for 10 years. He was a good officer, the kind of man who would never abandon his people. If Jake was sending a distress signal, it meant the situation was desperate. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Paul ordered. "Priority Alpha, and start preparing the Third Fleet for immediate departure." Within minutes, the news reached Earth. President Claire Thompson was in a meeting with the Agricultural Council when her aide interrupted with urgent news. Claire read the message twice, her hands shaking slightly. "Get me the Defense Council," she said quietly. "Emergency session, now." The Human Defense Council met in the secure chamber beneath the Capitol building. 12 military leaders from across human space gathered around the holographic display showing the Kepler 442 system. The destroyed research station showed up as debris scattered across the orbital path. "How many people were on that station?" asked General Robert King, the head of Human Defense Forces. 847, replied Admiral Susan Lee, who commanded the home fleet. "Scientists, engineers, families. Civilians, mostly, and the Crethan fleet? 400 ships, possibly more." They've established a perimeter around the system and begun construction of some kind of base. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Krathen weren't just raiding or exploring. They were establishing a foothold in human space, using the destruction of New Horizon as a message to the galaxy. President Thompson looked around the table. Recommendations? Full mobilization, said Admiral Lee without hesitation. We bring everything we have. Every ship, every crew, every weapon. We show these Krathen what happens when they attack our people. That's 60% of our total. Fleet, warned General King. It leaves our core worlds vulnerable. Our core worlds are already vulnerable, replied Admiral Harrison over the communication link. If we let the Krathen establish a base in the Kepler system, they'll use it too. Attack our colonies one by one. We stop them now, or we face a war that could last for decades. President Thompson nodded slowly. Motion to authorize full fleet mobilization? All in favor? 12 hands rose around the table. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Harrison, you have. Operational command. Bring our people home. Across human space, the mobilization order spread like wildfire. The Third Fleet under Admiral Kate Williams received orders to depart from the Sol system immediately. The Seventh Fleet under Admiral Ryan Clark abandoned their patrol routes along the Orion Arm. The 12th Fleet under Admiral Ben Rodriguez left their exploration mission in the Outer Rim. Captain Alex Turner commanded the stealth ship Shadows Edge, one of the fastest vessels in human space. He received special orders to reach the Kepler system ahead of the main fleet and gather intelligence on the enemy positions. How long to reach the target system? Alex asked his navigator. 72 hours at maximum speed, replied Lieutenant Amy Foster. We'll arrive 2 days before the main fleet, Alex nodded. Set course? And Amy, make sure our stealth systems are running perfectly. We need to see what we're dealing with without being detected. Meanwhile, civilian shipyards across human space converted to military production. The massive orbital platforms around Mars began producing weapons and ammunition. Mining operations in the asteroid belt shifted to gathering strategic materials. Even the exploration ships in deep space changed course to join the growing fleet, the Reserve Fleet. Consisting of mothballed warships from the last major conflict 50 years ago, began reactivation procedures. These were older ships, but they were still deadly. Veteran crews who had retired to civilian life returned to their old posts, their skills still sharp despite the years of peace. Admiral Williams stood on the bridge of her flagship. The massive dreadnought Iron Will, around her, the Third Fleet formed up in attack formation. She had never seen so many human warships in one place. Admiral, called her communication officer, we're receiving reports from the other fleets. The 7th Fleet will rendezvous with us in 48 hours. The 12th Fleet is 6 hours behind them. Kate nodded. What about the Reserve Fleet? They're coming, ma'am. Slower than the active ships, but they're coming. Admiral Peterson says the old crews are eager to fight again. As the human fleets raced toward the Kepler system, alien ambassadors across human space watched in growing concern. The Altarian Council, humanity's oldest allies, sent urgent diplomatic messages asking about Earth's intentions. The human response was simple and direct. We are bringing our people home. The Rugelian Trade Federation, which had profitable business relationships with humanity, offered to mediate the conflict. The humans politely declined, stating that negotiation was no longer an option. Even the powerful Centauran Empire, which had fought wars with humans decades ago, sent messages of support. They remembered what humans were capable of when their people were threatened. On Earth, the transformation was remarkable. The peaceful planet that had become the center of human civilization suddenly resembled its wartime past. Factories worked around the clock producing supplies for the fleet. Volunteers lined up at recruitment centers. The stock markets fluctuated wildly as investors realized that humanity was preparing for total war. News networks broadcast continuous coverage of the fleet mobilization. Citizens gathered in public spaces to watch the ships departing from orbital stations. Children who had never seen a warship stared in wonder at the massive vessels filling the sky. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a historian who specialized in human military conflicts, gave an interview that was broadcast across human space. "We haven't seen mobilization like this since the Centauran War 50 years ago," she said. "The last time humanity assembled a fleet this large, it reshaped the balance of power in the galaxy." The interviewer asked, "Do you think the Krathen understand what they've triggered?" Sarah shook her head. "I don't think they do. They studied our recent conflicts, our diplomatic approach, our peaceful expansion, but they didn't study our history. They didn't learn about what humans become when our families are threatened." Captain Turner's stealth ship reached the Kepler system first, slipping past the Krathen perimeter undetected. What he found there made his blood run cold. The research station was completely destroyed, scattered across its orbital path like broken toys. The Krathen had built a military base where New Horizon once stood. "Are you getting thermal readings from the debris?" Alex asked his science officer. "Yes, sir. Faint, but there are definitely life signs in some of the larger pieces. People are still alive in there." Alex felt a surge of hope mixed with rage. Jake Morrison and his people had survived the attack, but they were trapped in the wreckage of their home, surrounded by enemies who had tried to murder them. "Send a coded burst transmission to the fleet," Alex ordered. "Tell them we have survivors. And tell them the Krathen are using our station's remains as building material for their base." The message reached Admiral Harrison's flagship, just as the combined human fleet entered the outer edge of the Kepler system. 1,200 ships, the largest military force humanity had assembled in half a century. "Sir," reported the communication officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Krathen command ship. They're demanding that we leave their territory immediately." Paul Harrison looked at the tactical display showing the enemy positions. 400 Krathen ships against 1,200 human vessels. The odds were good, but the cost would be high. "Open a channel," Paul ordered. "All frequencies." The transmission went out across the system, reaching every ship, every station, every listening post within range. Admiral Harrison's voice was calm and steady, but everyone who heard it understood the iron determination behind the words. "This is Admiral Paul Harrison of the Human Defense Fleet. You have attacked our people. You have destroyed our home. You have exactly 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy calls us Deathworlders. War Master." Vexler received the transmission on his command ship and laughed. 1,200 ships sounded impressive, but the humans had grown soft during their years of peace. They would negotiate, make demands, try to minimize casualties. The Krathen would use their hesitation against them. "Prepare for battle," Vexler ordered his fleet. "Today we show the galaxy that human dominance is over." The hour began counting down. In the human fleet, every ship prepared for combat. Weapons charged, shields activated, and crews took their battle stations. After 50 years of peace, humanity was about to remember why they were feared across the galaxy. The hour passed like a countdown to Judgment Day. War Master Vexler stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the human fleet arrange itself in battle formation. The 1,200 vessels spread across space in patterns he had never seen before. "They're not using standard battle lines," reported his tactical officer. "This formation doesn't match any human military doctrine in our records." Vexler clicked his mandibles in annoyance. Humans always try to be clever. When the fighting starts, they'll fall back on their predictable patterns. They lack the killer instinct that wins wars. The Krathen fleet had arranged itself in a traditional attack formation, with the largest ships in the center and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. It was a formation that had served them well in their conquest of dozens of systems. Admiral Paul Harrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Iron Resolve. Around him, his officers worked with quiet efficiency, their faces grim with purpose. The tactical display showed both fleets in perfect detail. "Sir, the Krathen are holding their position," reported Captain Linda Gray, his tactical officer. "They're waiting for us to make the first move." They want us to attack their strong points, Paul replied. Classic defensive strategy. They think we'll charge straight at them like ancient warriors. What are your orders, sir? Paul smiled grimly. We show them that humans have learned a few things about war in the last 50 years. Signal the fleet, execute pattern Delta. The human fleet began to move, but not in the way the Krathen expected. Instead of charging forward in attack formation, the ships split into dozens of smaller groups. Each group moved in a different direction, creating a three-dimensional web around the enemy fleet. What are they doing? Demanded Vexter. This isn't how fleets fight? His tactical officer studied the display with growing confusion. Sir, they're surrounding us. But they're leaving gaps in their formation. It doesn't make sense. The gaps weren't mistakes. They were carefully planned openings that would channel the Krathen ships into killing zones. Admiral Harrison had studied every battle the Krathen had fought, and he knew their weaknesses. Captain Nicole Adams commanded the destroyer squadron that formed the fleet's right wing. Her 24 ships moved like a pack of wolves, fast and deadly. They had been tasked with cutting off the Krathen supply lines and eliminating their smaller vessels. Target the escort ships first, Nicole ordered. We take out their screening forces, then go after the big ones. The human destroyers struck like lightning, their weapons tearing through the Krathen formations. The enemy had never faced this kind of coordinated attack. Their ships were designed for straightforward battles, not the complex dance of death that the humans had created. Commander Steve Baker led the Marine boarding teams aboard the assault ship Thunderstrike. His mission was different from the others. Instead of destroying enemy ships, he was supposed to capture them. The humans wanted to learn everything they could about Krathen technology and tactics. Remember, we want prisoners, Steve told his Marines, but don't take any unnecessary risks. These creatures showed no mercy to our people, but we're better than they are. The Marines checked their equipment one final time. Human close combat gear had been designed for fighting in the cramped corridors of spaceships. Every Marine carried weapons that could function in zero gravity, armor that could seal against vacuum, and medical supplies to keep them alive if things went wrong. The battle began in earnest when the first Krathen ships opened fire. Their weapons were powerful, designed to punch through heavy armor and shields. But the human ships weren't where the Krathen expected them to be. They're targeting empty space, shouted the Krathen tactical officer. The humans are moving too. Fast! War Master Vexter watched in growing fury as his carefully planned battle formation fell apart. The humans attacked from a dozen directions at once, their ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Every time his forces tried to respond to one threat, another appeared somewhere else. All ships, concentrate fire on the human flagship. Vexter ordered, kill their admiral and the rest will flee. The Krathen fleet focused their weapons on the Iron Resolve, sending streams of deadly energy toward Admiral Harrison's ship. But the human dreadnought was protected by a screen of smaller vessels that absorbed the damage while returning fire with interest. Captain Helen Brooks had survived the attack on the research station, barely escaping in a damaged escape pod. She had been rescued by the human fleet and given command of a new ship, the cruiser Vengeance. Her crew consisted of other survivors from the Kepler system, all of them eager to strike back at the aliens who had destroyed their home. Target the ship that destroyed New Horizon, Helen ordered, her voice cold with controlled anger. I want that one. The Vengeance carved through the enemy formation like a blade. Its weapons focused on the Krathen vessel that had led the attack. On the research station, Helen's crew fought with the fury of people who had lost everything and wanted revenge. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Krathen fought bravely, but they were outmatched by human tactics and technology. Their ships were powerful, but they couldn't adapt to the fluid, three-dimensional combat that the humans had perfected. Commander Baker's Marines boarded their first Krathen vessel 3 hours into the battle. The fighting in the corridors was brutal and quick. The Krathen were strong and had natural armor, but human Marines had been trained for this kind of combat since childhood. Sector 7 secured, Steve reported over the radio. We have 12 prisoners and a lot of interesting technology. The Marines moved through the ship like a flood, overwhelming the Krathan defenders with superior tactics and equipment. The aliens had never faced humans in close combat, and they quickly learned why the galaxy called them Death-Worlders. Captain Adams' destroyer squadron had eliminated most of the Krathan escort ships by the 4th hour. The enemy's supply lines were cut, their communications were disrupted, and their formation was in chaos. "Sir, we're reading massive explosions in the Krathan fleet," reported the tactical officer. "It looks like they're losing ships faster than they can replace them." Admiral Harrison nodded grimly. "What's our status?" 43 ships damaged, 8 destroyed. Casualties are lighter than expected. The human fleet had been designed for this kind of warfare. Every ship could operate independently, but they worked together like parts of a single organism. When one vessel was damaged, others moved to protect it. When a gap appeared in their formation, it was filled immediately. War Master Vexler watched, his fleet dying around him. Half of his ships were destroyed or disabled, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down. This wasn't the kind of battle he had prepared for. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 6 of our vessels," reported his communication officer. "They're requesting permission to abandon ship." Vexler's mandibles clicked in rage. "No surrender. We fight until the last ship is destroyed." But his crew was losing faith. The humans had demonstrated a kind of warfare that the Krathan couldn't match. Their ships moved like living things, their tactics changed faster than the Krathan could adapt, and their crews fought with a determination that bordered on madness. "Sir, the humans are jamming our communications," reported the tactical officer. "We can't coordinate our remaining ships." The human electronic warfare specialists had been busy throughout the battle, disrupting Krathan communications and sensor networks. The enemy fleet was fighting blind, each ship on its own against a coordinated human assault. By the 7th hour, the battle was effectively over. The Krathan fleet had been reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships, most of them trying to flee the system. The human fleet pursued them relentlessly, determined to eliminate every threat. "Sir, we're detecting life signs in the debris of the research station," reported Captain Gray. "The survivors are still alive." Admiral Harrison felt a surge of relief. "Send rescue teams immediately. And get me a direct line to the surface teams." The rescue operation began even as the battle continued around them. Human ships moved through the wreckage of New Horizons Station, searching for survivors. Emergency medical teams prepared to treat people who had been trapped in the debris for almost a week. War Master Vexler made his final decision as his command ship shuddered under human weapons fire. He had lost the battle, lost his fleet, and lost his dreams of conquest. But he could still deny the humans their victory. "Activate the self-destruct sequence," he ordered. "We'll take as many humans with us as possible." The Krathan command ship began to overload its power systems, preparing to explode with the force of a small star. But Admiral Harrison had been expecting this move. "All ships, clear the area around the Krathan flagship," he ordered. "Emergency warp full power." The human fleet scattered just as the Krathan ship exploded. The blast lit up space like a new sun, but the human vessels were already beyond its reach. War Master Vexler had died as he had lived, trying to destroy his enemies. But his final gesture had failed. Just like his invasion, the Battle of Kepler 442 was over. The human fleet had won a complete victory, destroying or capturing the entire Krathan invasion force. But the real victory was yet to come, the rescue of the survivors who had been trapped in the ruins of their home for almost a week. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the space around Kepler 442 was filled with the wreckage of Krathan ships. Admiral Paul Harrison stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve, watching his crew search through the debris for survivors. The human fleet had won completely, but the real victory would come when they found their people. "Sir, we're getting strong life signs from the research station wreckage," reported Captain Linda Gray. "The emergency shelters are intact." Paul felt his heart pound with hope. Commander Jake Morrison and his people had survived almost a week, in the ruins of their home, surrounded by enemies. The thought of their courage made him proud to be human. Send every rescue ship we have, Paul ordered. I want our people brought home. Captain Helen Brooks commanded the rescue operation from her ship Vengeance. Her crew worked with desperate speed, knowing that every minute counted. The survivors had been trapped for 6 days with limited food, water, and medical supplies. We're going in, Helen announced to her team. This is why we came here. The rescue ships moved carefully through the twisted metal and debris. The remains of New Horizons Station were dangerous, with sharp edges and unstable structures that could collapse at any moment. But the human crews pushed forward. Guided by the signals from the emergency shelters, Dr. Lisa Carter heard the cutting tools before she saw the rescue team. She had been treating wounded survivors for 6 days, watching people die because she couldn't save them. The sound of human voices outside the shelter made her cry with relief. "This is the rescue team," called a voice through the damaged door. "We're here to get you out." Lisa helped organize the evacuation as the rescue workers cut through the twisted metal. 203 people had survived in the emergency shelters, including 42 children. They were weak from hunger and exhaustion, but they were alive. Commander Jake Morrison was among the last to leave the shelter. His leg was broken and he had burns on his arms, but he had refused medical treatment until all of his people were safe. When the rescue team finally carried him to the medical ship, he was barely conscious. "How many?" Jake whispered when he woke up in the medical bay. 203 survivors, reported Dr. Helen Kim, the fleet's chief medical officer. "You saved them, Commander. You kept them alive until help came." Jake closed his eyes and felt the tears come. He had lost over 600 people under his command, but he had saved what he could. The emergency shelters had worked, the distress signal had been sent, and the human defense fleet had come to bring them home. The surviving Krathan prisoners were held in secure cells aboard the human ships. War Master Vexler was dead, killed in the explosion of his own ship. But his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Crickstall, had survived the battle. "Your species made a terrible mistake," Admiral Harrison told the captured Krathan officer. "You attacked our civilians. You destroyed our home. You thought we had grown weak." Crickstall's mandibles clicked nervously. The Krathan studied human conflicts for decades. You prefer talking to fighting. You avoid killing civilians. You have become predictable. "You studied our recent wars," Paul replied. "You should have studied our history. You should have learned what humans become when our families are threatened." The captured Krathan revealed the location of their homeworlds and main fleet. The hegemony had been building their forces for generations, preparing to expand into the galaxy. They had chosen humanity as their first target because they believed humans were weak. "We will send word to our people," Crickstall said. "They will know what happened here. They will prepare for war." "Good," Paul replied. "Tell them exactly what happened. Tell them that 400 Krathan ships attacked a research station full of civilians. Tell them that 1,200 human ships came to bring our people home. Tell them that we destroyed your entire fleet. Tell them that this is what happens when you threaten human families." The news of the victory spread across human space within hours. The complete destruction of the Krathan invasion fleet sent a clear message to any species that might consider attacking human civilians. The Deathworlders had remembered their true nature. President Claire Thompson spoke to the human population. "From Earth, today our people faced a terrible enemy. They attacked our civilians, destroyed our home, and tried to use our peaceful nature against us. They learned that humans will never abandon their own. They learned that our peace is protected by our strength." The memorial service for the fallen was held in space, near where New Horizons Station had once stood. Representatives from every human world attended, along with alien ambassadors who wanted to pay their respects. Dr. Lisa Carter spoke for the survivors. "We came to this system to study and learn. We built a home among the stars, raised our children, and made friends with our neighbors. When enemies came to destroy what we had built, we fought back. We survived because we are human, and humans never give up." The Zephyrian refugees who had survived the attack were given new homes on human worlds. Their shells glowed with warm colors as they spoke about human courage and kindness. They would spend their lives telling other species about the day the Deathworlders came to rescue their people. "The humans showed us what true strength means," said the lead Zephyrian. "They have the power to destroy worlds, but they use that power to protect the innocent. They are warriors and builders, destroyers and healers. They are the best of what life can become." The Krathan hegemony received word of their fleet's destruction 3 weeks later. The news caused panic among their leadership. They had sent their best ships and most experienced commanders to crush the humans, and every single vessel had been destroyed or captured. "How is this possible?" demanded the Krathan High Command. "The humans are peaceful. They build schools and hospitals. They talk instead of fighting." "The humans are Deathworlders," replied the messenger. "They evolved on a world so dangerous that they became the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They choose to be peaceful, but when their people are threatened, they remember what they really are." The Krathan immediately began peace talks. They offered to return all territory they had taken, pay for the damage they had caused, and sign treaties promising they would never attack human space again. The alternative was facing the full might of the human defense fleet, and no species. Was that foolish. Captain Alex Turner's stealth ship continued to watch Krathan space for months after the battle? His reports confirmed that the hegemony had given up all plans for expansion and was focusing on defending their own territory. The lesson of Kepler 442 had been learned. 1 year later, Dr. Lisa Carter stood in the observation deck of the new research station that had been built where New Horizon once stood. The facility was larger than the original, with better defenses and a permanent military guard. But it was still a place of learning and discovery. "The crystal formations are growing again," she told Commander Jake Morrison, who had been promoted and given command of the new station. "The ones we thought were destroyed in the attack have started to rebuild themselves." Jake nodded, looking out at the gas giant that filled the view. "Life finds a way to survive, even after terrible destruction." "Just like we did?" The memorial to the fallen stood in the center of the new station, listing the names of everyone who had died in the Krathan attack. Above the names was a simple message: "Here stood humans who died defending their home. We remember, we honor, we do not forget." The human defense fleet had returned to its normal duties, but the lessons of Kepler 442 had changed everything. New ships were built, new tactics were developed, and new bases were established to protect human space. The galaxy had been reminded that humanity's peaceful nature was a choice, not a weakness. Admiral Paul Harrison retired from active duty and became a teacher at the Naval Academy. His first lesson to every new class of officers was simple: we are the guardians of human civilization. We protect our people, our homes, and our way of life. We prefer peace, but we are always ready for war. Never forget that when our families are threatened, we are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The story of the Battle of Kepler 442 became part of human legend, told across the colonies. It was a reminder that humanity had earned its place among the stars through strength as well as wisdom. The Deathworlders had shown the galaxy that they could be gentle healers or terrible warriors, depending on what the situation required. Other alien species watched the aftermath of the battle with new respect for humanity. The Altarian Council sent messages of support. The Rigelian Trade Federation offered better trade deals. Even the powerful Centaurian Empire, which had fought wars with humans decades ago, sent congratulations on the victory. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans were peaceful by choice, not by nature. They built schools and hospitals because they wanted to, not because they had to. When their families were threatened, they could mobilize forces that would make entire empires tremble, and in the depths of space, where the memorial beacon still broadcasts its message, the words continue to echo across the galaxy: we remember, we honor, we do not forget.